What is going on, YouTube? This is the Last Musketeer, and welcome to part 6 of the Arknights free-to-play progression series. So we're going right away with unlocking the module for Swire, and not only unlocking it, I'm going to fully max it because I absolutely love this op, and I have the utmost faith in her abilities. She actually does so well for me in these stages. I use her basically every stage, even if there is an option where I can get something a little bit better to swap out in her position, I still don't swap her out. I'll swap out something else before her because that's the most important thing. And one thing I do love about the campaign missions is early on when you're doing the first unlocks for modules, you have a lot of options when it comes to actually getting some of the data sticks and the data drives that you need for maxing out these modules. So at least for the first 3. Now, I don't know if it's a guarantee that it gives you everything that you need in that regard, or if it gives you most of it, but either way, it is a great option and a great addition to getting you started on your module missions. But I got Astina for the first time from recruits, and I also made a very, very big decision on E2 by getting Perfumer as my first E2 medic. And this is very important because I use Mud a lot, and since she cannot be healed by anything other than herself unless it is a passive healing, Perfumer 7% that I'm going to get from her max module is absolutely imperative to helping Mudrock stay alive and sustain in the more heavy damage lanes, because the shield can only do so much. I don't have her maxed out as far as her skill levels either, so there's a lot that Mudrock still really needs, but I'm getting closer and closer to the point where she is becoming so hard to deal with. But for Perfumer's module, to unlock it, I had to complete stage 3, 4, and the only thing about it is that I had to have Perfumer as the only healer, which is not a problem because this is a very easy stage, at least for the squad that I have currently, so it made it a lot easier there. I went to OF1 to use for the 5 battles with Perfumers deployed because it costs 0 sanity, and so it is a great way to get all that I needed without having to worry about wasting sanity for something that I would farm later on or doing some harder stage, something like that. So I can just kind of chill out a little bit and let it auto-deploy while I'm doing that. But we're getting into a bit of a greed territory because I really wanted Dorothy. I decided, you know what, I'm going to actually try to pull for Dorothy. So I wasn't expecting a lot, and I didn't know how close I was to Pity. I didn't think I was anywhere close, but the very first pull of the banner, I hit a 6-star. I was excited, to say the least, and then, of course, the curse strikes again. I am the off-banner god for a reason. Anything that is on banner is more than likely not going to be pulled by me for quite some time, at least not first on the banner. So I did pull Saga, and technically, I guess, in a way, she's not technically off banner since she's on the mountain banner currently, but either way, it still feels pretty bad. I would prefer Dorothy, though Saga is going to get some use in the future for sure. But Gray Alter, for some reason, I guess he just hates me, I don't know what it is, refused to go into my squad, so I got a couple of new 5 stars there. It is what it is. You pull Astina again, it kind of hurts because I just got her from recruit like a day or 2 before that. But we take Saga all the way to E1 already, and I take her to level 45. Make sure to max out her skills because I'm going to try to add her into my squad in the future as much as I can. I use basically the same Vanguards for most of my lineup, so I really want to switch things around a little bit and try something new in that regard. But she seems like an extremely good option when it comes to DP printing. If I put someone like Bagpipe behind, if I can get Bagpipe's module to where she gets 2 DP, I can also get the extra DP from Saga, leaving everything critically wounded. So it's going to be really, really fascinating to see how fast things go up. Also, Bagpipe just being so good for my lineup, I feel like early on with Saga being able to use that skill very early, it just seems like a really good option. So I'm going into the Paradox simulation for Bagpipe the same day that I did the Swire one, though I posted the Swire video before, so if you hadn't checked that out, go ahead and check that out. I love that Paradox. It's my favorite so far, but the Bagpipe one was actually pretty cool. I didn't find it to be that hard. I basically did it on the first try using her skill 3. I have it maxed out level 7, and then New Arknights I just throw right behind because he is the god of defenders. Obviously, nothing is getting past that man. You use the lights a little bit to slow things down, but it's all dependent on the DP gain, because if you're not using it at the correct time, you're going to put yourself in a very, very awkward situation, because the only way you get DP in this stage is from bagpipe. So you save up a little bit of the lights, and I try to use them to slow the big guy down so I can get the little ones out of the way in time, and try to buy some time to get her skill up, and her skill comes up just in the nick of time. New Arknights is blocking back there. She almost goes down. They both almost go down, though he does in the back eventually, but it is just enough to get bagpipe all the way through. But greed once again getting the best of me, I end up buying perfumer skin from the shop, and I mean, how can I resist? Honestly, that is a very, very nice artwork, very cute. The fox addition to it is very nice, so it's going to be nice to look at instead of just watching her regular outfit all the time like I used to. I also considering buying the one from the contingency shop because I feel like that one is actually really cool as well, though I will probably be keeping this one on for quite some time. But moving back into some actual content clearing, I moved all the way over to Dark Knight's Memoirs because with the way I'm working on things currently, what I've got in the works, I'm kind of needing to take this one out, and I decide, after trying to plan this out a little bit, I do mess up quite a bit in this one. Somehow it ends up working out because I missed some timing on something. I'm not exactly sure what happened, but as you can see here, I dropped Tequila at the right side to try to take out as much of those as I can. They don't quite get it done, but I knew Mudrock was going to be up soon, so I wasn't worried about anything getting by. Now, the main thing is not hitting the guys to cause everything to wake up on the side and just overrunning me. Unfortunately, I did. Mudrock's swing ended up hitting the guy while I'm fighting the caster that's walking through, and so Thorns does go down. He gets overloaded a bit, but they do hold, thanks to Bagpipe and, of course, Swire being there, as important as she is. And then I'm able to get Thorns up again, so it ends up working out in the end. I expected fully to actually lose because of Thorns dropping there, because I didn't think I was going to be able to hold off that line enough, but in the end, it worked out. Probably don't follow that as a guide. By no means, any video in this, any clip that you see, none of these are guides specifically. This is kind of just a walkthrough of how I did it, and I'm just showing you as far as progression purposes. But these are not a good idea to follow for guides. You're going to have a lot better options out there. So just a fair warning in terms of that. But I do like to throw Thorns in the middle of a split lane. I know he can't attack in the forward part of it, but he can attack on both sides, and once he gets the skills available, he's going to help in both lanes. It seems counterintuitive in a way, but I still think it is a great option for Thorns, even if he doesn't have the middle to hold down. But I do have Swire and Bagpipe further up in that lane, and I know that in that sense, Thorns is not necessarily going to be able to help with that, but they can handle that on their own. I put Tequila down in front so that anything that walks through after I get it charged up is going to take a lot of damage. Unfortunately, another Sarcast caster walks out and just destroys him. So, you know what? I didn't get to use him, but that's fine. Somebody else will get vengeance for him. I also almost didn't notice the one walking up to the top. So I did notice in time, got Kanta down just so I could stop him from doing that. But the one at the bottom actually gets through because once again, I was not paying attention to what was going on. I was like, oh, this one's in the bag. I don't have to watch anymore. So we end up getting through that one not too bad. I do like these X stages. I like the idea of the air vents that come in and can change whether or not something does a lot of damage or very little, so you have to be careful with the placement here, making sure the direction is facing the correct way, which is also really annoying when I want to use Swire in situations like this, because if she's getting her full capabilities from these, she'll have to face like up or something from that bottom pillar next to Thorns and Perfumer, but she can still do a little bit when it comes to actually placing her down if I wanted to. Now Mudrock with that upgrade is very good, and also Thorns would have been if he had a little more options for placement there. If there was one up at the top on the left side, he would have been fantastic here. Probably would have held that lane with no difficulties whatsoever. He still basically did whatever he wanted to do in that lane. And Mudrock blocking the Lancers and everything that comes out on the right side is another great option. Also throw down Click just for a little extra help, just in case things do go bad. Now, one thing I have to always pay attention to if I don't have Lapland or some type of silence in my lineup is the Sledgehammer guys, because they can stun, and so if you're not careful and you're holding a lane with one specific operator like Mudrock, for example, it could end up turning out bad. So you have to really just make sure that I have an extra drop ready just in case something does go bad, because I don't want to leak from dumb decisions, which does happen to me from time to time. But we hit level 57, and I do have to say it is becoming few and far between when I get the actual doctor levels up, so it's always good to see. I always love the refresh and sanity. Always seems to come at a really good time, honestly, because there's a lot of things that I had to do, a lot of things I needed to take care of, and so it couldn't really gone at a better time. But we are doing the Chocolate Street Annihilation, and the reason being, well, I needed to complete it, but also I really needed the rocks from it. So you get one of the big rock concentrations, which is the purple version of the rocks from this. The reason being, I'm farming for a Mia E2, and at this point I was kind of desperate because I was going to stream the day that I was doing this, but I decided, you know what, if I can actually farm all 10 of the big rocks in time to take her to E2 before the next day, then I will stream the next one and just do all of this day farming. I had 3 or 4 sanity things saved up that I was going to use for the stream. Unfortunately, I needed to use them all just to get Amiya to E2, but it was well worth it, because when it came to the stream, doing the Patriot fight was a breeze with her. I had no difficulties whatsoever, though I will try to, at some point, I'd like to go back and do the run without her and try to see you know, just who could be the best option, best ways of dealing with them, whether I'm going to have to take the fight extremely slow or find some other way of doing it, because without true damage, it is a very, very rough fight. But Amiya E2 makes it a joke, so make sure if you haven't got to that point yet, that you put the focus on actually taking her there, because she is a really, really nice caster. It's going to give you a lot of options if you're missing true damage. Now, the main thing about this annihilation is you got to control these zones, because if you don't, as you can see from the ones entering from the left side, they've got these purple bars under them, pink, whatever you would like to say for the color, and that's basically ammo. So what it does is give them extra options for damage. Maybe it's burn, maybe they just do insane nuke when they have that. There's a lot of different things that you have to watch out for there, because they're going to be very, very strong when they have those options. So you have to be extremely careful and place your units accordingly, otherwise you're going to go down extremely quickly. But as you can see here, Perfumer on the bottom side does go down. This happens quite often as I'm getting over 200, because I just didn't have a lot of great options of keeping her alive at the time. I tried to keep Gabriel there. I have Tequila right below the other one to do a little extra damage in case that one does get taken over, but also because he does a lot of damage in general, it's going to make it easier to clear everything. Now, he does have no capability of healing while he's up against that. Luckily, he's very tanky, so he will go down quite often, but he can hold his own and distract fire for quite some time. As you can see here, I'm getting closer and closer to losing this one, because there's just a lot going on, a lot of damage coming out, and my bottom lane just keeps getting wiped over and over again. Perfumer quite often goes down. Saria cannot quite hold that lane yet, because she's only E145. I think when I get her to E2, more than likely she can hold that lane with the pure amount of healing that she does. I throw Click in the bottom lane to try to take out the rocket guy before he moves through. Unfortunate that it was not quite enough, but we still take him out with thorns by the time he gets there. And that's the main problem that I ran into, because I'm doing decently well in this. We're at 350 without a leak. A lot of these are doing a lot of damage, but I'm able to sustain it well enough. But when more of the rocket guys come through, the elite versions of them, they just end up wiping me extremely quickly. Everything falls apart, so I don't quite get the 400. But over time, you know, I'll probably try it again in maybe a couple of weeks to see what I can potentially do going forward. But we did pretty well. We got all of the milestones except for the last one, so I am happy about that. And the main reason we're doing this is just for the rocks. That's the only thing I wanted. was rocks. It didn't matter if it was the purple ones or the blue ones or the green ones even. I wanted rocks. That's all I needed, and I didn't want to have to farm the quarry anymore because I didn't have enough sanity to be able to get all of them unless I got extremely lucky and got some of the very rare drops for the purple ones. Now, the second annihilation is very weird. I did end up borrowing somebody's support unit and using it for a therapist so that I could lower the duration of the freeze that Thorns keeps. That way he could sit on the middle tile, do insane damage because he has way too much attack speed and just overall damage while he's in that section. Now he is frozen a lot, which does create a bit of an issue, but if you can work your way around it and try to keep a therapist on it at all times, you're going to have a little bit of easier time actually holding it comparatively to him sitting at the back. So overall, you know, it worked out pretty well. I will say we got decently far in it. Not as full completion. Most of these I'm not going to do a full completion until I kind of get a good workout for the stage and kind of figure out exactly what I need to do in most situations. But, you know, it's still like I'm basically missing a couple of key components to my roster that I really need to make these actually a lot easier. So over time, I'm going to get to that point, though it's going to be quite a while probably before I can actually do a lot of the 400 clears for these annihilations. But I am satisfied with where we got because all I was doing was, of course, for the rocks, and I think this one I only needed 200, maybe 300 to get some of the blue rocks, I think 3 of them, so that was a big improvement to what I actually needed left for the rocks. And like I said, this is all for Mia. I literally devoted so much of my energy, my sanity in-game and IRL just for Mia. And as you can see, I leaked my first one here at 160 something because everything just fell apart at the right time where everything was frozen. He just managed to get by. It is what it is. I wasn't expecting to get a full clear, as I've said before, so it wasn't too big of a problem. Now, once the swordsmen come by, that's when it gets a little bit scary because they do insane amounts of damage to anything that is frozen, and that's going to be happening quite often, especially with the spiders coming through. That being said, Lapland would have been a fantastic option, but I don't have her E2 yet, so potentially with the 1 second timing it could work out in a really bad spot where one of them goes down at the same time that the silence wears off, which is going to do the same effect as if I didn't even have Lapland in the squad. So we're moving into the almost 250 territory. We're doing actually pretty decently. I will say the weebs are starting to hit extremely hard because the freeze timing is not going well. Thorns is, luckily enough, holding that lane by himself so that I don't have to drop anything as a desperation play, but we do have Saria down now, and I should have put her on the other skill because the first one requires the heal only to work whenever she's attacking. The other one is every time it's off cooldown, as long as somebody needs healed, she's going to use that healing wave, which would have been really, really good because she's going to upkeep that while Thorns is taking constant damage, which means as long as she's not frozen, she's going to get a lot out of it. But the gorilla guards start coming out, the big boys with the shields that take priority when it comes to actual attacks, which means I'm going to have a lot harder time sustaining in this lane now. And of course, the elite versions of the spiders are out, making it even worse, and everything starts to fall apart at this point. So basically we go down. I'm hoping for 325 at this point because that'll be the next milestone. And unfortunately, Thorns is just constantly frozen at this point, so he doesn't get enough time to get the damage off. So, you know, I'll take my L graciously, because I got what I wanted out of it, and that's all that really matters. Now, this one was actually really fun because I borrowed somebody's horn with skill 1. I didn't realize just how much damage that operator actually does. She is insane. At first I thought I was going to have no way of building up my actual DP because I got rid of Myrtle early on so I could just have Kanta and Bagpipe holding the lanes as DP generators, but Horn, you know, she was being a bit selfish. She decided she wanted to wipe every enemy that came through before I had the option of doing that. So basically I had no DP generation. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to deploy anything on the left side. I don't know what I'm going to do. I ended up taking Bagpipe out, and it was just enough DP to deploy Myrtle, so I was able to build myself up from there. But between Bagpipe and Gavial and then throwing down whoever else I needed, whether it be Swire, whether it be Cantabile in that lane, I had enough sustain to keep this one going, and I actually did extremely well. Horn carried quite a bit. Thorns and Mudrock took care of left side with no problem whatsoever. I used BP to actually highlight the top lane so they could attack up there, and Thorns could just do all the damage before I had to really worry about anything coming down the stairs there and making a mess of what I'm dealing with. But I do have some decent placement here when it comes to the shadow boxes, because some of the enemies that come out will do damage to people that have darkness behind them, so you have to be really careful. Now it's just one tile behind, and it doesn't count if it's one tile to the left or the right behind them. It just has to be exactly behind them, and then he'll basically wipe whoever is in that position unless you have insane amounts of healing on that specific operator. So you have to try to avoid that as much as you can. And realistically, if you actually really need it, you have someone like Gravel or Jay as a quick deploy option, maybe Cantabile, depending on what your lineup actually is, so you can deal with stuff like that. Now I do end up leaking 3 of them because they wipe my bottom lane pretty quickly there, but other than that, I didn't actually leak any. I nearly got the full 400 for this one. The boss was actually really cool, boss that I haven't dealt with yet, and he really wasn't too bad. Yeah, he sends out these knives. I don't exactly know how strong they are, because really I didn't get to test it too much. This is my only time I've ever dealt with this boss, but he did go down pretty quickly between Horn and Gavial Altar, and then having just somebody there to bait and keep him stuck in that spot. So if I hadn't have lost that bottom lane near the end there, I would have 100%ed this one on the first try, which would have been really nice, but at least I know what I need to do, what I need to change for the next go of it. If Gavial Altar was E2 100%, I would have held that lane because I would have had no problem keeping her alive there. But we get all the rocks we needed. We farmed about 400 sanity cost just to get all the rocks for Mia, but the E2 was well worth it. So now I've got pure damage, a lot of attack boost, and I'm just going to have no problem dealing with Patriot's first phase. But I wanted to throw this in here too because I was trying to get LMD to level her up because I was lacking it tremendously. I had only had enough to, after E2ing her, get her to level 6. So I decided to do an IS2 run because I was like 2 or 4 levels away from actually getting the next LMD drop. So this is, funny enough, probably my strongest IS2 run yet. The strongest I've ever been getting to the boss. I got a temporary recruit Surtur out of it. I had actually borrowed somebody's Ling for it beforehand. So I have Ling with a lot of extra damage due to some of the collectibles I got, and also Surtur with increased attack speed and increased damage. So it was just insane to see, just a bully of a run, and Phantom basically really stood no chance. And even the dancers went down extremely quickly. I had to use Surtur early to drop down to try to do enough to get rid of them. Cantabile, as you see there, almost kills one of them when 2 of them are attacking, which is insane. But I used the dragons to try to take out the rest of them. I tried to see just what Jay is capable of at this point. Really doesn't do anything, but I dropped Surtur to deal with Phantom up top. She's got her skill available. As you can see, he's just melting to this. Unfortunately, he does get by Surtur because he puts her to sleep with that elemental damage, but he stands no chance once I have Ling and the dragon available with Ling's skills. So a good way to actually end off the run, because that is not only my favorite so far, but also enough to unlock the 50k LMD drop that I needed for Amiya. So I'm going to use that, the extra that I am going to have through a little bit of the farming before the stream the next day, and get her to level 40. So now I am ready to take on Patriot. An absolutely juicy amount of candles coming in, almost 1k just from that alone. And I unlock a couple more collectibles, so that's always good to see. But I got the furniture set and hit level 81 for the LMD. So now we're going into the actual stream territory, and I'm going to talk about the Patriot fight while I'm doing this. And I do apologize if my voice is a little rough sounding right now. I guess it's the lack of sleep lately mixed with the fact that I just got done with a workout. Before this video, I just feel extremely exhausted, so it's a little rough going on that, but we're going in to the Patriot fight, and I'm going to show you just what I did. So I cut out the 2 practice runs that I did beforehand, but realistically, I beat it on the second run with the practice, so I went in with the same strat, but basically trying to execute as well as I could, if I could remember exactly what I did from the last one, because I have a bad problem with going into a practice run, figuring out what I need to do, and then forgetting 1 or 2 steps here or there that ends up losing the run. But I face Thorns on the right above Swire, facing the right side to deal with a lot of what is coming through here. Put Perfumer 1 square and to the right above him, and then I have Swire holding the bottom lane because Swire is goated. She is the greatest operator in the game. Don't at me. Because to me, anything else is blasphemy. You know who the real best operator in this game is, and that's absolutely Swire. So, moving on, I used Cantabile for a little extra DP generation. I should have pulled her out before she got hit with that last shot. Wasted a little bit of there. You know, for some purposes, it could have been helpful. Probably didn't need it anyway, so I'm going to let it slide this time, but it's not as efficient as I wanted to be. But the good thing about Patriot is while he's walking his path, he's going up in the middle lanes, and it seems that none of the other ones, until he summons his own later on, are actually going to walk through the middle path. So I know if I put the mines down there and they go off in time, I'm going to have no problem taking him out here. And as you can see, he's taking 2,500 per shot from Amia. She is an absolute unit when it comes to the Patriot fight, and of course he stops to take a little bit of breather because he's a big guy and it takes a lot to march down that way. But now he's going to the second phase. I'm getting rid of both Click and Amia because both of them are going to be kind of useless here. They're going to take a lot of damage and they have no healer on them, so that little aura you see around them is going to do a lot of damage while they're sitting in it, so I don't need them anymore. Now I'm also going to remove Myrtle from the top lane because I just need to get them out as quickly as possible, and she's just going to stall and then go down, and it may end up having really bad timing with everybody going out. Now I drop Bagpipe on the right side because all I'm needing her to do here is actually just hold off the mortars. Now once the skill 3 activation goes out, she's going to take them down extremely quickly, and that's really all I need. Now I drop Blue Poison out on an island by her own because Patriot also had the ability to throw a spear every little bit that does basically a one-shot to my range units. Now you have ways of doing surviving and baiting multiple ones if you have someone like 12F who gets lucky enough to dodge the actual throw, but I can just stall with BP. I can also throw Click down over there, that way I can keep Shining alive at least, because she is very important for keeping Thorns alive, because he's going to be taking a lot of damage. Now I also throw Gabriel a little bit too early, and Patriot starts to attack her, and I thought, oh no, she's actually going to go down. I don't know if I needed her damage per se, but it is always helpful, and more than likely looking at it now, I did not need her damage whatsoever. But Shining does go down because I didn't replace Click or Amia down to tank the last spear, but either way, this one is basically over. All I have to do now is stall out a little bit more damage from the guys up top. Thorns will finish them off, and that is game over. Now I activate Bagpipe's ability again just to take out the mortar before she went down, because that would have been really embarrassing. Having to watch him walk all the way from that side of the map to the other would have taken so much time, and on stream that would have been very, very annoying. But here is a bit more agreed, because I'm sitting here thinking about what I wanted, and I was like, you know what, I really, really want Dorothy. So I decided, you know what, why not? I asked stream, would you like me to actually pull in this banner? And to be honest, even though I asked, I probably was going to do it anyway, but I do appreciate people giving me the boost to actually go for it. So I do some individual pulls here, just to try to get lucky. I didn't want to do a straight up 10 pull, just in case, you know, maybe I pull it in the next few. There's a potential that I can save as much Arundum as I can, because the main goal at first was to save for Texas Altar. Everything was going to go for Texas Altar, and hope that even if I did pull an off banner, there is a chance of pulling another Altar version. So I decided that is the best way to spend things. So now I have to grind up a lot more to get all of the Arundum that I spent back, and hopefully have enough to guarantee a pull on Texas Altar. Without the 300, obviously I'm not going to be able to get to 300, but I pull Solopsis there, and I was excited because I pulled another 5-star right after, and I was hoping it was Gray, and of course, I get back-to-back Tolopsis, so I can't really complain. She is a pretty good healer. It's going to be a nice one I can level up that could pair with Perfumer in situations where I need a lot of group healing. So she also is kind of like an SP battery because she gains all of the friendly units around her SP like 0.15 every second, which is pretty good, honestly. It doesn't seem like a crazy increase, but that amount is going to bring in a lot of extra skill usages, which could be the deciding factor in some of these stages. But we're moving on to the EX stages now, because after I finished the Patriot fight, I decided to do some of the EX because it had unlocked the day prior, so I was waiting a little bit for that. But I will say, for the most part, these are not that bad. I was expecting a lot more out of them because they tend to usually be a little bit harder for the EX stages, but I did also borrow Aya for most of these. So yes, it was kind of cheese in a way. I think Aya is one of the greatest operators for this whole event. She just has so many good uses here. And so it made it a little bit easier. I'm not going to complain about it because I really need the OP at this point. I'm spending so much on Dorothy Banner, and as you've seen so far, I just haven't been lucky enough to get her. So we'll see what I can do by the end of it, how much my greed grabs a hold of me, because I did at one point do a few more pulls, and I was thinking, you know what, I should probably end it there. I'm going to use all my OP and I'm going to have nothing left when it comes to actually needing it. But with that being said, the stage is pretty straightforward. Mudrock holding bottom lane. I've got some test power armor that's coming through that I will use Aya for in just a little bit. Then also Thorns and Swire holding top lane. Pretty easy. I mean, for the most part, the orbs are more of a problem than the test armor currently. If they're powered up test armor, then yes, the absolute damage and tankiness they have is insane. So that's one thing that you have to watch out for. If you can keep them from getting activated, well, then you're going to have a lot easier time doing this. But I know there are some medals, I think for this stage in particular, where if you activate 3 of them, you get the medal for clearing the stage, but I decided not to go with that right now. I can always go back and do the medal later on, but once again I borrow Aya because this is a beautiful spot for her to use her ability. She doesn't take out all of them, she does miss one because it is quite, or just a bit out of range. But it's such a beautiful thing to watch when she's attacking multiple at the same time. I also drop Amiya there just to do a little extra damage. One of them does get activated, and Amiya's not going to be able to finish it off. Neither is Aya. But with it just being the one, I really have a lot of options of dealing with it, so I'm not too worried about it. Click is down, so if I need to, I can activate the ability, and the stun should keep the guy off long enough just to get it done. But this is the last stage of this part of the video. I'm also going to release a second one because I had a lot more to talk about, and I didn't want this video to go for an hour long, so you were going to get it split into 2. This one a bit longer than the other one, but I do believe I'm going to release it the next day because, like I said before, my voice is very tired. It's hard for me to muster what I'm trying to do and explain everything well, so I'm going to end it here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.